meeting of the Board of Ellis County Commissioners will now come to order. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Could you call the roll, Bobby?
Commissioner Dean Hazelwood.
Present.
Commissioner Schreier.
Present.
Commissioner Neil Younger.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Okay. Any changes to the order of business? Okay. And there's no executive sessions. Prior minutes from September 7th, Commissioners? Any changes?
Nope.
Thumbs up.
Okay. Minutes stand as submitted. Is there a motion for the consent agenda?
I'll make the motion for the consent agenda, items A through G.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. Any issues from persons not on the order of business? Okay, no one's running up here. Okay, then the first item here would be the county fiscal year 2022 revenue neutral rate and budget hearing. We need to make a motion to open that. Okay, I move to open the public hearing for the intention of exceeding the revenue neutral rate and for the different 2022 Ellis County budgets. Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. Darin.
Well, as we've talked about throughout the year, the process this year changed for the revenue neutral rate hearing that we had to have. And kind of the same process as before. We still have to have this public hearing, so that way if there's anybody in the community, any of the taxpayers that want to come voice their opinion or ask questions in regards to the upcoming budget, they have the option to do that tonight.
Okay. And does anyone want to comment about that?
We're down to Peggy and Brenda.
So it doesn't look like it. Okay. Any comments from the Board of Commissioners?
I have none.
I have none either. But
Okay. Then I move to close the public hearing for the 2022 budget and revenue neutral rate.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. Okay, we need a motion to approve the budgets. Resolution 21.17 and Resolution 21.18 for budget year 2022. Is there a second for that?
I'm getting there, Butch.
Okay.
Hang on, where's it at here? Oop, I'm clear up to Peggy's. I bypassed it. You gonna read the resolution, or you want me to, or?
Yeah, you can go ahead, Dean.
Or how do you want to do it?
Yeah, go ahead and just read it. Yeah.
Resolution 21-17, a resolution of the Board of Ellis County, Kansas, to exceed the revenue neutral rate in its property tax levy for the tax year of 2022. Whereas the Ellis County Board of Commissioners is statutorily required to provide notice of hearing and prior to exceeding the revenue neutral rate, and whereas the Ellis County Clerk provided notice of the hearing of the revenue neutral rate on August 31st, 2021, and whereas the revenue neutral rate for the tax year 2022 for Ellis County was calculated at 35.943 mils by the county clerk, and whereas the budget proposed by the Ellis County Board of County Commissioners for tax year 2022 will require the levy of property tax rate exceeding the revenue neutral rate, and whereas the Ellis County Board of County Commissioners held a hearing on September the 13th, 2021, allowing all interested taxpayers an opportunity to be heard at that hearing, and whereas the Ellis County Board of County Commissioners, having heard testimony, have determined that the best interest of Ellis County to exceed the revenue neutral rate. Now therefore be it resolved by the Ellis County Board of County Commissioners, Ellis County shall levy a property tax rate exceeding the revenue neutral rate of 35.94 mils for the tax year 2022. The resolution shall take effect and be enforced immediately upon its adoption and shall remain in effect, and future action to be taken by the Ellis County Board of County Commissioners. adopted this 13th day of September 2021. Butch Schleier, Chairman. Dean F. Hazelhorse, Member. Neil Younger, Member. Bobby Clerk. Bobby Dryden, County Clerk. Whoever she is.
Over there.
Okay, and do we need an official motion on that then there? Okay,
have.
I move to approve the proposed budget resolution 21-17 and resolution 21-18 for budget year 2022.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. Okay. Then we have the Northwest Kansas Juvenile Services. Peggy.
Can't believe she didn't say anything at the hearing. Somebody could have spoke up.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not asking for any money. I guess I could have thrown that in if you wanted me to. Usually start my county commission meetings by saying, I'm not asking for any money, and so that usually means that people start paying attention to what I'm going to say. So, I'm Peggy Pratt, again, with Northwest Kansas Juvenile Services, and I've been the director of the agency that covers 17 counties for about 25 years. So I've seen several of you more than once. I'm going to start by talking about access to Northwest Kansas Juvenile Services, how juveniles get access to our programs, and then also the child in need of care access to our programs. So it starts with an arrest. It could be an arrest of a parent that has a child any age, and it would juvenile intake can be called. And typically, law enforcement will call juvenile intake after an arrest, especially if they need a placement for a child. And so if it's an arrest of a parent for doing something illegal, juvenile intake will find a foster home for the child, or with assistance from law enforcement, will place the child with a relative or somebody in the community. A hearing has to be held within 72 hours after that placement. That placement does not cost the county anything. Really, the benefit of going through juvenile intake and assessment following that arrest is that the intake officer will send the county attorney an update on to how many times they've gone through the juvenile intake system. It could be the child in need of care system. They'll make a referral to the child in need of care system, or DCF, and then to the county attorney as to what's gone on in the child's past and maybe some recommendations for programming. The access to juvenile services, however, is based on an arrest again, but it's the arrest of the juvenile. And so a juvenile is a child aged 10 to 17 who commits a crime. When they're arrested, juvenile intake can be called immediately, especially if they need a placement. That does not occur very often. However, most of the time we'll get a notice to appear. And so in that case, let's say that there is a bust of a party and there's 10 kids there. There's really no reason for law enforcement to sit with the juveniles for a long time, to get a hold of juvenile intake and for us to do something immediately. The kids will go home. The law enforcement officers will give the parent and the child a notice to contact. And what that notice to contact is, it tells the juvenile and the parent they have to call juvenile intake within 48 hours, excluding weekends and holidays, and to set up a time to meet with Jennifer and do the intake. What the intake does is it queries the system, and it can tell you across the state how many times, if any, the juvenile has been arrested. And then based on that, Jennifer will make a referral to the county attorney, and the referral may be an immediate intervention program, which in that program, it means that if the child is successful, they don't have a criminal history, or it could be juvenile intensive supervised probation program, which means they would go through an adjudication, being found guilty, and then go through disposition, given the consequence for the crime. So Jennifer makes those referrals to the county attorney based on the current crime and the past criminal history. There are times when juveniles go to the detention center, and I know that Ellis County has had quite a few kids go to detention center, not nearly as many as in the past. We do have a detention risk assessment tool now, And the tool helps to determine if the juvenile is public safety risk mainly. And so really when you send a child to detention, you're not fixing a whole lot other than you're keeping the community safe, which is important. However, you're really not changing the behavior of the juvenile. So we try not to send kids to the detention center unless it's absolutely necessary. When a juvenile is on either program, intensive probation or a diversion program with juvenile services, we have quite a few programs that we're able to offer. One would be the Parent Project. The Parent Project in fiscal year 21 had 22 parents go through it out of Ellis County. And I think you'll notice that there are some that say other referrals. What that means, outside referrals, what that means is our grant will cover the books, which is $30 for the parents of offenders, but the grant does not cover the books for the parents of non-offenders. So those other referrals would be the parents of non-offenders, and most likely those are referrals from St. Francis. So it'd be from the parents of kids that are in the custody of DCF. The Parent Project class itself is 10 weeks, 2 hours at a time, and all of the ones that for Hayes for Ellis County have occurred in Hayes, and there's actually one going on right now. And because it's 10 weeks and 2 hours in length, you can see that you can't have a whole lot of them in any one fiscal year. And then when the COVID started, we did not have those in-person classes for a short period of time. Another program that we have for the juveniles is the Forward Thinking Program. And that's a cognitive-based program that really works on whatever the risk factors are based on a risk tool. So one of the risk factors that's pretty common with our kids is peers. And so we try to get them to really think about what choices they're making with their peers, maybe thinking about choosing different peers if they can't make better choices with their peers. Also looking at addiction. If drugs or alcohol are involved with the decisions they're making, we have a cognitive behavioral book that works on drugs and alcohol, the choices that they're making while they're on drugs and alcohol, how this is affecting their future. We have some that are family related, and then some that work on like the attitudes of kids and school. So we have the programming that really addresses all of the risk factors that would come apart with the juveniles that we work with. Addiction treatment, we've got contracts with a couple of different addiction treatment providers so that we can pay for the assessment when they're arrested, as well as for the aftercare for the addiction. We also have functional family therapy, which is in-home family therapy, and that's a statewide grant. And that's available for kids that are being supervised, kids and families that are being supervised on intensive probation. And then we have mental health treatment, and that is a grant that we have that we can cover the mental health costs of any kid that we're working with that are on intensive probation or are on a diversion in the area. And so we have, obviously, we have the most referrals in Hayes. So I was looking at the numbers of kids that you have in Ellis County that have gone through each program. You've had in fiscal year 21, that's your third page, I believe, that I'm looking at, 166 kids go through intake and assessment. Some are offenders, some are children in care. You had 33 youth go through intensive supervised probation, so be on probation through juvenile services through Ellis County, and then you had 53 youth being supervised on an immediate intervention program. Ellis County has consistently had the highest number of the 17 counties, which you would assume that would happen being they're the largest. I think we have a very good relationship, ongoing relationship with the county attorneys, and really try to do what they need for us to make the kids successful. One of the things that we've done fairly recently is we've purchased electronic monitoring devices, which would be ankle bracelets, and we can use those as alternatives to detention, and those are real time, And so let's assume that a juvenile is arrested and law enforcement is not comfortable with them just going home. However, they don't feel like they're a community safety risk. They can call Jennifer, and we can have them attached electronic monitoring device, of which we have some located at the Ellis County Sheriff's Department. We can design some parameters, so we work with the agency that oversees this, put the parameters around whatever area we want the youth to stay in. So let's say we put them on house arrest. We can draw a parameter around their house, and so if they go whatever distance outside that, the juvenile, first of all, will get kind of a mini shock. It's not like a dog collar shock or anything, but just to kind of let them know that they're outside the parameter. That means step back in. If they don't step back in, they'll get a call. And if then they don't step back in, the monitoring agency will call Jennifer. Jennifer will notify law enforcement. She'll try to call the kid and then notify law enforcement that the juvenile is outside of the parameters. If the juvenile were to break the electronic monitoring device, we get a tampering call, and then we notify law enforcement automatically. One of the things we do with the kids when the electronic monitoring device is put on, we have an agreement that they signed, and as part of at the very end of the agreement, we say, not that we're encouraging them to break the monitoring device, but we say if you're going to break the bracelet, break the plate, not the bracelet, because the plates cost $6. The bracelets cost like $900, and we charge the juvenile for those. And so we're kind of giving them a heads up that if you're going to be silly enough to do it, at least think that far ahead that you don't want to break the whole bracelet. We've used the bracelet several times for the kids that are on intensive probation as well. So for an example, we had a young man who was accused of stealing a bicycle, and he was on house arrest. He claimed that he was not involved in this. He was home this whole time. So we got to go back a couple of days on the computer system and look. And about 2 a.m., he did happen to leave his house, and he went right to the house of where the bicycle was stolen and then went back to his house. So law enforcement showed up, and there was the bicycle. A different child had said that he was attending treatment, and as was required, and so I just said, well, let's look. And so I looked, and he didn't attend treatment, or at least I told him, if you did everything but your ankle attended treatment, because your ankle was still at your house. So the electronic monitoring devices have been really beneficial for us. Some of the things that we really focus on when the kids are on probation is school attendance and passing school. And so for the immediate intervention kids, we typically require a C or better. That does not mean if the child doesn't have the ability to get a C that we sanction them. But what we're finding is a lot of the kids do have that ability. They maybe don't believe in themselves, or they haven't put a lot of effort into it. But once they figure out, oh, I guess I can do it, then things improve. Or if they don't have the ability, then at least we have expectations that they'll do as good as they can. We also want the kids to be involved in something pro-social. And that is more of a struggle in the more rural areas. However, in Hayes, there are more, there's a lot more things to get involved in than maybe some of the rural areas. One of the other things that we're really focused on is working on their thinking errors. And, statistics say that, studies show that the male brain doesn't fully develop until age 26. And so we're trying to get the kids to that magic age, I guess, without having a criminal history. And so we're putting a lot of programming in, working with them on their thinking errors, so that when they are of that age, they don't have a huge criminal history, because I think that really is that really doesn't do the youth any good. And I think if some of you can think back to your teenage years and the things that you did then, you probably wouldn't do now. And so it'd be hard to think that it should impact the rest of your life just for the poor choices you made as a teenager. And I think that's Oh, and then you're our fiscal agent. I should mention that. So I appreciate you being our fiscal agent. You get the grant reports, and it's been pretty, we had a new grant last year, which was the Trauma-Informed Resilient Community, and that is working with the Educational Service Unit and a couple of other agencies that work one-on-one with the kids through the school districts, and they're gradually getting involved in working with all the schools in the 17 counties and training them on how to work with kids that have gone through trauma, how to identify it. So they're training staff, they're trying to get after-school groups, and then they're doing some one-on-one with the kids. And I know that a school in Hayes had been trained on the trauma-informed schools. And a lot of that was kind of slow starting just because it just happened right when the COVID was happening too. And so the schools weren't meeting in person for part of it, or different state agencies weren't meeting in person. Is there any questions?
Peggy, do you have a high percentage of repeat offenders?
No, we were tracking the youth on the immediate intervention program, and so we would track a year after. And about 86 to 87% of those don't have a repeat offense. Now, the intensive supervised probation clientele it's higher than that. And we just started to do computer data, computer-based, so I can't give you those numbers because it doesn't come off the system yet, but I'm hoping eventually it does. But I can say the intensive probation is higher for reoffending.
Sure. Commissioners, any questions?
The success rate on the parents getting involved, is that pretty good percentage when they get involved if their child's in trouble or they see it?
Yeah, it's a lot better. And, I went to one of the Ellis County Parent Project classes, and one of the things that really surprised me, and I'm not sure why I did, but there was a group of parents, and most of their kids hung out together, but these parents did not know each other up until the time that they started the Parent Project. Well, I had gone probably in week 6, and so they had a rapport. And there just happened to be one parent that didn't show up, and the other parents knew why, though, because they were saying this is what happened to her son, he did this, and we should call her, we should tell her, we have her back. And so you could see that they were, they had a camaraderie, and they were supporting each other. And that was one of the things that we really focus on is in the Parent Project, is that, if you can find a support system, get to know the parents of the kids that your child is hanging out with, but get a support system. When that starts happening, the outcomes are a lot better. And when the parents feel like we're supporting them, the outcomes are a lot better. So one of the things that we had a brainstorming session just last week, and we talked about what kind of things can we implement to remove some more barriers for these families. One of the things we talked about was really focusing with the kids on what do you see your future as? Like, what do you want to do? How can we help you? One of the things we identified was if they say, I don't know what I want to do, take them to the workforce. Let them do the interest inventory. Let them see what kind of jobs there are available based on what they're interested in. Take them on community college visits. Take them on college visits. All the things that our parents probably did. But we want them to have some opportunities to see that life as they see it right now is not necessarily their future. I mean, they have some impact on that, and so we wanted to give them opportunities. We've also done things like pay rent, and that might be causing a lot of stress for a kid as they don't know if they're going to be evicted from their house. We've bought kids clothes. We've bought food. I mean, we try to look at what is going on with every particular kid, knowing that there's not one size fits all, and just trying to remove barriers, but let them know that we're working with them, and we really want to help them.
Okay, thank you
Okay,
for
Peggy.
what you're doing. It's quite the challenge, I'm sure, with some of them, but yeah, thanks for what you do, Peggy.
Yep, you do a great job, thank you.
Thank you.
Peggy, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, our next agenda item is the Kansas Local Bridge Improvement Program. Brendan?
Good evening, Commissioners. Brendan McKay, Ellis County Public Works Director. So the KLBIP is called the Kansas Local Bridge Improvement Program. Got a question for you. What's a bridge? Anyone have an answer?
I used to know that answer. It's, yeah, go ahead and tell us.
Take a guess.
That is.
We know it when we see it.
Well, you'd be surprised because it's anything over 20 feet. If it's 20 feet, it's not a bridge. If it's less than 20 feet, it's not a bridge. Did you know a metal culvert can be a bridge? If there's enough of them put together to work as one flow system, it can be determined as a bridge if it's greater than 20 feet. So that's what makes this program a little bit different and adds some of the confusion in it. So part of this program, it's for low-volume roads for spans that are greater than 20 and less than 50 feet. The reason they limit that is there's only $150,000 in funding, and even a 50-foot bridge is probably around $800,000 to replace in most cases. So they limit it so that way most people are selecting something that the state funds will cover the majority of. So last year we were selected for this. That's where that 140th bridge closure came into effect. So going forward, we'd like to be more upfront for this year's submittal. Don't know if we'll get it because you generally don't get it back to back. You never know, so you always apply. There's a bridge structure that is just over 20 feet on the western side of the county. It's a very low bridge. Looking at the hydraulics right now, we believe we can replace it with culverts, which would make the span less than 20 feet. Therefore, it's no longer a bridge. That would give the county additional $50,000 in funding if selected. But the roadway would never close. It would just take what is there, remove what's there, which is failing right now. We actually have work we want to do to it, and replace that with most likely corrugated metal pipes or concrete floor and narrow the span up and clean the channel out some so we can get away from that 20-foot number. So instead of we're closing a bridge in effect, but we're also not closing the bridge. The roadway's staying open. So I know there were some questions about that in the past, and that's what we would like to do if you guys are all in favor of it. It doesn't affect the roadway any. All it does is potentially give us another $50,000 in funding for a project.
Sounds good to me. Commissioners?
Good plan.
Oh, yeah. Very good plan.
We get to
Don't
close
wanna
the bridge and keep the road open.
Yeah, it's because we're changing it to make it not a bridge.
So in the future then, is there some more that we can also look at doing that too?
There's some.
Okay.
This one worked out kind of ideal for us because we have repairs we need to make to that structure anyway. So we're going to be doing work there regardless of selection. If we're selected, we'll turn it into some culvert pipes or shorten the spans up. If we're not selected, we'll just replace what needs fixed on it. And then going future, maybe 10 years from now when it needs more work done, can use it again. But there are a few throughout the county because to be eligible for the $50,000, you have to remove a structurally deficient bridge from your inventory. That definition kind of changes year over year, but the biggest thing is it's either in immediate need of repair or it's going to be closed, it's weight restricted, or it's functionally obsolete. I mean, you can have a bridge that's 100 years old that's not classified functionally obsolete, but we've got bridges that are 35 years old that are considered functionally obsolete. Those are usually your fracture critical bridges, which we're down to 4 of at the moment. That one bridge over 140th was one of those fracture critical bridges. It means if one component fails, the whole system will fall. Are there any other questions on that? Or?
I have none. Commissioners?
Okay. Well, we're looking at,
Proceed.
there's a structure on Antonino Road. It's FAS 250. It's over the ADT guidelines. It has about 400 vehicles instead of the less than 100. We're talking to the state now to see if that one is eligible. Otherwise, we have a couple other options. But that is our ideal candidate because the piers are good, the deck and the wing walls need repair. And this grant should cover almost all of that if we're selected.
Okay. Moving on then. Our next project is the Cathedral Road Kdot agreement. Brendan?
So as you're aware, earlier in the spring session, we were awarded about $750,000 for the cost share grant from Kdot for the improvements to be made from, just north of 13th Street in Victoria down to 6th Street, all along Cathedral Avenue. It'll be improving the roadway, the parking lanes, and curb and gutter and sidewalks in that location. If any of you have ever driven down it here recently, the road, it goes every which way. The parking lanes are down. The curbs are 3-4 feet of height difference from side to side. So the grant and the project we'll be doing there will fix that cross slope, improve the grade, and improve the drainage, and improve the parking and driving lanes. So as part of that, we have an agreement to sign with the state. It's pretty much the standard cost or agreement that you always have with the state. Our total cost for the county is estimated right now at about $1 million, and the city also is getting a bond out, or they already have a bond out for $1 million for their share, because we're responsible for the 24-foot driving lanes. Everything outside of that, that's included in the scope of the project, is on City of Victoria. So their number can change more if they decide not to do sidewalk and spots or not to do curbs, but that's the number we're going out with right around now. Is both parties will be contributing around $1 million, and the state will be contributing $750,000.
Okay. Any questions, Commissioners?
Yep, I think that's a good improvement for our community.
Yeah,
It's gonna be
Victoria
nice.
definitely needs it.
Done for a long time.
Yes, it's been,
Okay, do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve and sign the attached Cathedral Avenue reconstruction agreement, Kdot cost share program project number 26C-5132-01.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0.
And there's a fall letting of the cost share agreement. We're going to be applying for the continuation to finish off Cathedral Avenue from 6th Street all the way to Old 40. Instead of being around $25 million in funding, there's around $9 million in funding this go around. So we don't know if we'll be selected again, but that area needs help too.
Yes.
And it's better to apply. The worst they can tell us is no.
Can anyone remember the last time that was redone? I can't.
I know there's been some surfacing done on it, but it's in rough shape through that whole section.
Yeah.
And you've got a lot of concrete right there from the church's parking lot, and those doesn't appear to be enough or correctly orientated expansion joints. That's actually pushing the curb out on the west side of the roadway. It's breaking the curb and around the elementary school there. It's concrete will move, and without those joints being placed in the correct spot, not a licensed engineer, so I can't tell you exactly where that is, but tell you something doesn't look right from my eye, and seeing every other slab being replaced, this will hopefully eliminate all that with the new concrete with the correct expansion joints.
That'll be nice when it's completed. There's a lot of people look at that church and go that direction, so that'll
Yeah.
be great, a big, good improvement.
To your question, we did have a couple weeks ago, we had a public hearing over there at the VFW in regards to this project. In that south part past 6th Street to the south down to Old 40 is basically the only, I wouldn't even say it was negative, that came out of it is, why are we stopping there? Why aren't we gonna go further? And anything else that was asked was just basic construction questions, is, flow of traffic, mailboxes being relocated. But the only thing they wish we would have done different or more is gone farther south. And I mean, the true answer is the amount of money that the project was going to cost is what we're limited at. So they were pleased to know. I think Brendan also mentioned that we're looking at doing some improvements to that down there as well. And one of the things that Brendan has stated to them as well down there is can't really go over top of it anymore, especially underneath the bridge, because it's already at a minimum height. So they're glad to see that get corrected, so that way they don't have incidents down there with semis hitting the bridge anymore.
Because underneath the railroad bridge, that whole slab there is pushing towards the creek, so that needs to be addressed. And if we put a lift of asphalt over the top of it, it would look nice for a little bit, but it doesn't solve the underlying issue. That was cored here 2 years ago, or last year, if I'm not mistaken. And it was 2 inches thick, and that's not enough for that traffic that road sees. That's why it undulates so much and rolls, and why everything's kind of pushing, because there's not a solid base to it. And just putting a new coat of paint on the bad side on the house, it looks nice from far away and for a little bit, but that rotted wood's still going to come through. So we need to get down to the base and clean it up and fix it.
Okay, moving on. Mechanic job descriptions. Brendan?
Yes, sir. So we noticed here, there's been talks brought up to me by my shop foreman when we made the switch from the open mechanic position to an open truck driver position. Our parts clerk, when they became the parts clerk, they were a mechanic. They gave up the incentive pay, I believe it was called, for being a mechanic. But while we're down these mechanics, they're still assisting out in the shop. They're the one out there with the code reader, getting the diagnostic information. I've seen them out there changing tires. They're out there assisting with the scheduled changes. Because they moved to the parts clerk, which is a higher grade than the mechanic, but lost the incentive pay, if they had stayed a mechanic and continued doing the job that they're still doing, they would be higher paid now. And looking at their job description, it didn't have the mechanic duties in there. So we'd like to fix their job description and reward this long-term employee that's been with the county 6, 7 years at this point, reward them for all that they're doing outside of their current job description. So that would entail moving it from a 110 to a 111, which would be about a $1,600 a year increase, which we can absorb in the budget.
Well, I think it's probably only fair to do it if they're already doing the work for it. We ought to acknowledge that. Commissioner Hazelhorst, questions or concerns?
I agree, and I know who
Yeah.
you're talking about, and yeah, that should have been corrected a long time ago, but it hasn't, so I think we can correct it now and go forward.
Commissioner Young?
So how long has this employee been doing this? And it's
Is it 2 years at this point now, or coming up on 2?
I
I think it was just over or under.
Or is it just under 2? I thought it was 3 already. Maybe it is just 2.
Phil Smith-Haynes created the incentive pay, and that's probably been 4-ish years ago. And he took a promotion probably about a year or so, it may have been 3 years ago.
It's around there,
Mhm.
2 to 3 years.
Yep, I'd be in agreement with that too, if he's been doing it that long.
Yeah,
then-
we have mechanics that have been
Should've-
here for less time than this employee that are making more than him, but he's doing the same job as them, plus additional duties on top of that. And that's where we'd like to kind of rectify this discrepancy if possible.
Not only that, looking in the future, and if, this individual retires or whatever, it's gonna look inviting to some other, community person.
Yes, sir.
Definitely.
Okay, is there a motion for this?
I move to approve the update to the parts clerk job description.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much for your
Brandon.
time.
Thanks, Brennan.
Okay, the Western Kansas Child Advocacy Center Memorandum of Understanding. Darin?
The Western Kansas Child Advocacy Center reached out to the Ellis County Fair Board a couple weeks ago in regards to renewing, or actually starting an MOU for the building that's out there. If you look at the, right off of Fairground Road on the far west end of the parking lot, there's a basically two-car oversized garage. That's where they have some equipment and some vehicles in there for the Western Kansas Child Advocacy Center. They are looking at applying for a grant coming up, and part of that grant requires them to have this MOU stating that the county is letting them use that facility. And they reached out to the Fair Board, and speaking with Mr. Jeter, the MOU has to be with the Board of County Commissioners since the commission owns the land and the property. So we just updated that, and I revisited with the Western Kansas Child Advocacy Center point of contact and changed the MOU to notate that. The only addition that the Fair Board wanted to add that the MOU didn't have was that if they were to revoke this MOU and move out of the building, that they would understand that the building would revert back to the county commissioners, and then it would be up to the commission to find a use for it at that point. But that was also added, and they were okay with that. So the updated MOU is attached for approval, and if the commission approves it and signs it, I'll get it sent back to them tomorrow.
Commissioners, are there any issues with the MOU?
I have none.
Well, great deal.
Okay, is there a motion to accept this?
I'll move to approve attached MOU with the Western Kansas Child Advocacy Center and have the chair board sign.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. Okay, County Administrator report. Darin?
So the only thing I have today is that next week on September 22nd, I think I'll let each of you know today, is the bid openings for the Northwest Business Corridor project out in Topeka. And hoping that we get some good news, that it comes in at estimated for the budget. But hopefully late Wednesday afternoon next week, I'll be calling you with some numbers if I can. But we'll probably have some upcoming budget discussions on that as to how much our share of that is. It's still estimated between 2 and 3 million, which is why one of the reasons why we took out the bond
Sure.
last year. So we'll probably have a final agreement, award of contract, and the payment to Kdot coming up in the coming months, and we'll know a little bit more once the contractor is selected as to what their expected start date is. So hopefully October, November timeframe still. I believe the first phase of the project would be the off-site work around the curve. So there's plenty enough road construction up north part of town now, but there wouldn't be any additional road construction at this point through the winter. But
Mhm.
I'll have some more information to follow.
Sounds good. County Commission reports. Commissioner Hazelhorst?
Wednesday going to grain field and Northwest Kansas Highway officials meeting. I think that's from 8 o'clock to 2 or 3. You have to look at the agenda or whatever it was, but I don't know, going out there, and the following week KAC board meeting. So
Okay. Commissioner Younger?
Yeah, I too also will be going to that Wednesday, and last week, Thursday, I went to where Peggy was, the Kansas Juvenile, and then the correction. Had a nice meeting. That was very great of her to come here and explain to everybody. We need those services in our community, just to keep everything in line, and if she can save a life, that's great. That means a lot to our whole community. It's well needed, and I appreciate what she does.
Okay. And Wednesday, I'll be going out to the environmental office. We're going to have the ribbon cutting at 4 p.m., so I'm going to try to be out there and take part in that. And that's all I have to say. And no further business appearing. The Board of County Commissioners meeting will end here at 5:43.
Hopefully the Hayes Post front page article will be the Ellis County mill levy was voted to be decreased tomorrow. Lower.
Jonathan, buddy, old pal.